So you wrote this article for the Globe and Mail that everyone's been talking about.
Have they?
Yeah.
What have they said?
Good things.
Really?
What was kind of the impetus behind writing it?
Well, surprisingly, they just asked a bunch of filmmakers to complete the sentence, what the Canadian film industry needs is. And then I just didn't stop. I just kept doing a whole bunch of them, thinking they'd pick one. And then they wrote back and said, oh no, it's fantastic. Let us send a photographer and we'll it sounds like a manifesto. We'll make it the centerpiece and make it a manifesto. So I was, in fact, slightly unnerved, not unnerved, but uneasy with the word manifesto, because I thought it sounds so directive. They're just thoughts on what I'd like to see happen. But I suppose, if you get grand, that's what a manifesto is. So no, it wasn't an article I wrote. It was a bunch of points that they chose to include in their entirety. But yeah, my goal was just stay alive. Don't get stuck in the past, because the film industry is changing constantly. I've been in it long enough to see major shifts, and the money goes here and the money goes there, and the medium. I'm old enough to have people go wax enthusiastic about videotape. It's fantastic. It comes in this little box, and you can tape over it as many times as you want, and there's never any loss of quality when you tape over it. It's like, so there's this enthusiasm for each new technology, which I tend to have. I'm a real technophile, but anyway, I want to keep everyone alive to the new reality, as far as I understand it, which is there's never been a higher demand for film fiction. There's never been a higher demand, but you have to be prepared to have it on this thing, on this thing, on that thing, on that. There's going to be 1,000 different venues for it, on internet only. So you have to be. I think I try to ignore the fact that of where it's going to show, because you can't anticipate that. 10 years ago, no one knew what YouTube was. Now people are watching everything on YouTube, including this.
Funding was kind of a prominent point in all of the kind of numbered bullets that you highlight. I was wondering how funding has shifted in your career with your own experience.
Well, my first couple of films I could fund completely out of Canada.
And that was grants or government?
That was Ontario Arts Council, Canada Council, the Ontario Film Development Corporation, and Telefilm. I could put a film together in my own country and make the film. The second film, because the first film was fairly successful, the second film I got some money out of England just to mix it up because they wanted to, and I thought that'd be nice. And then, by the time the third film came around, it was getting more difficult, and now that's really very hard. So, unless you keep the budget really, really small. And I haven't received any public funding, Canadian funding for, since, I don't know, for the last 15, 18 years, something like that. So I've been working outside of, the funding has been outside of Canada since, since my third feature.
And it sounds like the point you make about funding within CBC, it was kind of like how Germany functioned in the 70s, where TV would offer the money so that they could screen it. And then in Canada, that's kind of what Moses Znaimer did for a while. But you're kind of suggesting that this would be all public, so that it would be the CBC that was funding, and then it would get its secondary release on the CBC?
I would love to see Canada have a full public broadcaster, where our work isn't interrupted by commercials, where it is just a service that is provided, and it's funded by our tax dollars. I think that countries should have one place for that, and it seems kind of with the CBC is neither fish nor fowl. Yeah. It's kind of partially dependent on advertising, and then advertisers have their own demands. They expect something for their dollar, so and they won't necessarily put their money into that one kind of show, and so it's industry that is dictating again what goes on the CBC. And I think that there should be just one place. I'm really pro business. I'm pro sell your wares, make something people want and need. But I think there has to be a place where those pressures are not dominant. I think it's really important for our country to have a voice for maybe unpopular views, a voice for new, interesting, strange stuff that people in small towns are going to wince at. But we know that it's important it gets out there. I still think there should be a major effort to engage a large audience. I think we should try to make the CBC, hugely popular at certain times of the day. But I just think there's got to be. It's like school. Schools aren't required to make money. There should be a place in our culture where we don't have to make money. It shouldn't all be geared towards that art. There has to be a place for something other, and that's something that's truly Canadian too. I think anyway. So that was one of my points on the manifesto. Make CBC this huge draw for major talent that goes to the U.S. now because there's not enough opportunity sometimes or money here, and make this incredible place for us for people to come back and do their miniseries that they can't get off the ground in Hollywood because it's too interesting or too smart.
Well, that also brings up what I kind of see as the paradox with the CBC is that to get something interesting like you're describing requires them to take a risk. But because that money is public money, there seems to be this kind of apprehension to do anything that they think is not completely populist, something that would appeal to every possible demographic, like this white whale that they're chasing.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I was just involved with Don McKellar and Bob Martin on this television series, Michael Tuesdays and Thursdays. It got terrible ratings. Almost nobody in the country saw it. I think part of it is it's a very unusual beast. It's this heavily serialized comedy half-hour series, which is a very unusual thing, and it's about kind of people with problems. But they didn't promote it well enough, I think. But they support it, and I think, and they're developing it again. Well, they have to wait until the budget comes down to actually be sure, but they're acting like it's going to go again. So I think they are in fact willing to have some shows that aren't, McDonald's hamburgers, that aren't crowd pleasers, but that are a really refined piece of nutrition.
What I find interesting is, do they take into account the online views? Because I personally watched Michael Tuesdays and Thursdays through their site.
That's the other thing, is I don't know if that's part of the counting. Because sort of the younger, interesting audience watches things online and not, on TV when it's broadcast. Very few people, I don't even know when Modern Family is projected, right? Or is broadcast. I don't even know when it is. I only watch it because I PVR it, So.